Different views, different views.
I know your story.
From different Jews.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Corenna Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
2 Point.
Joining us today in studio is a well-known, successful Maine business owner, host of Inside Maine, has been a gubernatorial candidate more than once, and a very dear friend of ours, Shawn Moody. Welcome to the program, Shawn.
Corenna and David, I appreciate you having me on.
Thank you. Obviously, we've been on your show once or twice,
Right.
so we thought we'd return the favor.
Looking forward to it.
Maine's paid family and leave program imposes a wage tax on businesses and many employees. I'm a business owner for real estate, and as a sole employee, I'm mandated to pay the government wage tax to fund my own paid time off, even if it never, ever happens. What are your thoughts on this program?
Well, first off, I just say that like a lot of things that have happened in this current administration, they've been in the dark of day, not the light of day. You know, I talked to so many people that never saw this coming, didn't know a thing about it. Then it gets announced that we're going to take a 0.5% out of your pay, 0.5% out of the employer. And beyond the money, it's not even going to be able to get a benefit for a whole year. They're going to fund this thing. Basically take this cash, put it in an account, and fund us. And the thing that really bothers me, I'm very heavy into, you know, the cultural aspects of work and a real positive work environments and things like that. It's crucial to growing an organization. You're going to have a situation where, especially with social media, individuals are going to take this time and they're going to abuse it. And they're going to post things on Facebook or whatever on their timeline. They're at the beach or they're here, they're wherever. And meanwhile, back at the ranch, the coworkers are going to pick that person's slack up. And they see that, they're going to be resentful. So now when this person returns to work, it's not going to be happy days where you've been. And I'm not saying it was done intentionally. It was going to create a toxic work environment.
Right, especially because you're employee owned.
Correct.
Yeah, which would be different than a regular business with maybe 1 or 2 owners. So you got more employees involved looking at this.
Oh yeah, they had 275 coworker owners that have an equity stake. They kind of care who's pulling on the rope.
Right, especially if there's 15 to 20% that are taking this at 1 or 2 times. For instance, in the wintertime in your business, probably the busiest time for car accidents, it could really slow down the work pace.
Absolutely, David. No, I think the overarching concern to most business owners, and I'm sure you and David feel the same way, is this government control. You know, government thinks they have the answer all, and the reality is they can't run their own business, right? They're in debt, they're wallowing in it, and yet they have the gall to go to the small business community and say, hey, we know better. You're not treating your people right. You got to provide more benefits and extend yourselves. We've been in a tough labor market for over a decade. Mm-hmm. Employers are not, this is a sweatshop days. You know, employers are going to great lengths, as the Quirk family does, to take care of their people.
That's right.
And anyway, you need to hold on to your good people, first and foremost. So this is an arrogant, divisive tool that the government's putting in place, and they're saying it's for the right reasons, but they don't know, and they don't have the experience to know for every action there's a reaction. This is going to be taken advantage of. It's going to drive resentment and bitterness into the workplace where it doesn't belong, and there's going to be a lot of people that are going to end up unintended consequences. That's just the government's MO, unintended consequences with a seemingly well-to-do program.
Well, that's an interesting dynamic with employee-owned. I hadn't even thought about that situation.
Yes, and it's so vague. I'm a compassionate person, but, if you've got a pet that's ill or, it's so ambiguous. It's just open for fraud. And I think, in the family medical paid leave program, again, we've got big companies, not a lot of big companies in Maine, but there are, BIW, Chinmo, big employers here in the state of Maine that already provide these types of benefits. And now they're going and say, hey, we should be exempted. We're already providing this coverage through insurance, private practice. And the state's defaulting on that, saying, no, we don't know enough. So they ended up having to sue the state. BIW has got a suit right now to say, we're not going to pay in and provide added expense to our employer and employees when they're not going to receive the benefit through the state.
Right.
We've already got that covered. So they're just dilly-dallying around, extending it, stalling. Meanwhile, the cash is coming in. It's terrible. It's almost like extortion.
I'm glad you brought up an exemption, because we had Representative Katrina Smith in here, and she said, the citizens of Maine are now paying for my paid time off, which I'm a part-time legislator, and I'm never going to take the time. When would I take that time?
Right.
I feel terrible that you're all paying for me because we're exempt. State employees don't pay.
That's right.
State employees.
Corenna, I'm glad you brought that up. That's right, David. And again, that adds insult to injury. You're picking and choosing who's going to benefit, who's going to pay. And again, it's kind of like taking care of their own at everyone else's expense. It's just wrong. Our government, the current administration we have right now is not business friendly. We're at the bottom of the tank in terms of how we rank across the country. And businesses know it. They feel it, believe me.
And wait until that wage tax increases, because I'm sure that's going to happen.
And also the municipalities, right? If we pay for the municipalities, obviously property tax is going to go up.
Exactly, David. And the school budgets, they didn't budget for any of this. It's not in their budget. So whatever they allow for, it's 4% increase, whatever it is, they better tack another percent increase just to cover the cost of this program.
The other thing I wanted to discuss with you is the public policy charge. Obviously, you use a lot of electricity at your body shops like we do. And with us, just our EV charges. Matter of fact, one EV charger, before we even turn it on, is $1,700. You know, I get a lot of people complain about the prices. And the price that we get charged is $2.51 on the average of the kilowatt. Now, we're only charging $1.29. We're actually losing money charging up people's cars. And in your case, with all these businesses, it must be hurting you like it is McCrum. And what's going to happen down the road? Are we going to continue to lose business? I know my friends are lobstermen down the street, and they take the lobster to Canada and bring it back to process it because we can't even afford to put our lobster processing, or the same way with the lumber yards that our lumber is being processed in Canada.
I believe this started back with the Dickie Lincoln Project back in the 70s. I think that government tipped its hand and said, we don't want industry. There are a lot of paper mills, and let's face it, Hydro-Quebec's 4 cents a kilowatt. And so Dickie Lincoln would have presented the biggest advantage, I guess, in terms of business-friendly industry growth with low energy costs for the foreseeable future. That got shot down, and I think that was the tipping point in Maine, where we went from a blue-collar state, very industrious, very resourceful, to a tourism economy. They've shifted completely. So pretty much the coast and Portland and the cities are running the state and the state policy. So when this green energy initiatives came forward, they're all in favor of it, obviously, right? The environmentalists. And costs associated with, they just pick who's going to come out ahead here with the solar farms and the wind farms. We haven't bolstered hydro production or updated our hydro dams to increase productivity or output, which is easily done. We could put the money into that. Wouldn't have been changed our landscape in any way. You wouldn't even known it happened. So they're picking where this investment's going, and they're wrong. And now we're feeling the effects of that financially through this public policy charge, David. And I give Ameris Versant now so much credit for itemizing that on the bill, because I can promise you there's not those Democrat lawmakers wanted that out in the open like that. And it's raising the question.
Right. They're probably tired of getting all the complaints.
I'd give them credit and say, no, we're not taking the heat for you guys. You passed it, you own it. So to answer your question, David, that is the most egregious thing that you can do to business owners, is the unforeseen costs that get thrown on. You know, everyone plans, you guys budget, you run a tight ship. So when these things come over the bow, significant added cost onto your operations, well, how do you react to that? You're not feeling the love, right? From the state or from this Democrat-controlled monopoly here in Augusta. No, I feel for the McCrums. I feel for the industry here across the state, because the happy homeowners, $20, $30 a month, they're probably not liking it. But when you're talking tens of thousands of dollars in increased cost per month at a place of business, that hurts.
Well,
Certainly does.
It's got to be the reason there are several businesses closing.
It's unbelievable. I think I've seen this in risky going into business, right? There's a risk associated with starting a business. In the past, it was the owner, and David, you can relate to this, the owner started getting a few bucks in their checkbook. I'm talking small business in Maine. The checkbook starts going up. They go out and buy a new automobile or whatever, and they get overextended. They don't pay their bills. Okay, a year later, they're gone. But what we're seeing is a different dynamic today. What we're seeing is legacy businesses. These are well-financed, good operators, proven track record, and established businesses that are thrown in the towel. Mm-hmm. They're worn out. Yeah. They go to work every day, 10 to 12 hours, contrary to what business people get labeled, right? We're at the beach, 10 to 12 hours a day, grinding it out, and they get to a point where they have money in the bank, they've got real estate, they've invested, and they're like, why put myself through this every day, my wife and I, or whatever, whomever it is. So when you've got, restaurants like the Muddy Rudder, the Good Table down in Cape Elizabeth, a lot of restaurants in Portland have shuttered, and these are established businesses. They're just worn out.
Yeah, between lack of workforce and being squeezed at every corner.
Exactly right, Corenna. It's a real, I don't want to say it's a canary in the coal mine, but it kind of is. These businesses aren't coming back.
Shawn, I know you're very involved with trades and community colleges throughout the state. How do we change the narrative that success only comes with a 4-year degree?
Wow, I think we're beginning to. BIW sells Chinbro. We did a marketing campaign statewide about 4 or 5 years ago, just promoting the trades. And in addition to that, Chrissy, my wife, and Danielle, and we have a board of directors now, we established the Maine Blue Collar Scholarship Foundation. So last year alone, we gave away $150,000 specifically for seniors that are going into the trades. So we've been doing the hand-to-hand combat of going into school districts, going into schools, talking to administrators, talking to guidance counselors and saying, listen, you tout, DEI, quality, and what be more inequality than telling someone they have to go a certain path in their career? I use the expression that they like to use, occupational equality. They haven't been promoting that, providing it. And I really believe now we've changed the narrative. You have to go to college to now people really taking a hard look at that as being a viable career path. The other dynamic that's happened is the college loan crisis. People are just wallowing in debt and they didn't make it to the finish line. They don't have the degree. They're not happy in what they majored in, and they're ticked off. They feel like, hey, I got sold a bill of goods and now I got nothing. I should have gone into I wanted to go in the trades, and my teacher said, no, you're too smart for that. Talk about denigrating, right? So no, I think I'm really glad you asked that question, Corenna and David, because we are passionate about the trades. I'm a tradesperson. I'm a master craftsman. I'm proud of it. And that has done so much economic damage to our state and to our country because we've got to replenish our trades pool. The cost of housing, the cost of construction, HVAC, on and on. It's 20 years you got to go to college. It was the biggest educational mistake that they made. They'll never admit it. And I would just bring this to people's attention. Stop and think about this. You graduate from high school and you go directly into the trades, just like I did. That stops the educational cash flow. So to promote, you got to go to college, to me, is a direct conflict of interest because you're basically promoting additional education, which comes at a cost, formal education, which keeps, the money flowing into the educators' pockets. And it's just not right because you're not looking out for the student's best interest. You're looking out for the educational system's best interest. And I really feel like the momentum has shifted, but we cannot let up. We've got to continue to challenge these educators and the educational system that what they did was wrong. And we need a full court press here to get this leveled out because we have such a void in our trades pool. It's affecting really the whole country.
As someone in the real estate industry, I see firsthand the high demand for skilled tradespeople. Need an electrician, plumber, roofer, or inspector for a last-minute project or an urgent job? Good luck with that. And if you're buying land, how long before you can actually build? 1, 2, maybe even 3 years later? There's definitely a need.
Yeah, no, Corenna, you're absolutely right. And you're in the industry. Mm-hmm. You have contact. I believe me, I know you got contacts, and David does too. Think of the people, the happy homeowner that has no contacts, had nowhere to go. Mm-hmm. Just to try to get a simple plumbing problem, pipes are backed up, whatever it may be, move a light. And I think the thing that I'm so passionate about is I see a direct correlation between depression in young people, suicide, mental health issues. When you force people to go against what's really in their heart, what's in their spirit, which I think is exactly what education has done, that has a direct mental health impact on that individual. So when you take these young adults that someone's got their thumb on saying, you got to do this, you got to put a tremendous amount of pressure on them, but inside they're burning and say, I don't want to do that, but they don't dare speak up. So they get into a path, go on to college, get a year or two under the belt, they drop out, got debt. It's just a recipe for failure. So I'm really passionate about reconstructing our career tech ed facilities, the instructors, and just really having that impact on education and bringing that right to light. That if you're really, really passionate about taking care of these individuals, then they need to be given every opportunity and exposed to all aspects of employment, not pigeonholed. Because I look at it this way, it's like the corporate cubicle, that basically college is developing the corporate workforce. And we're on the sidelines, the folks that work with our hands and are in the trades. They've been doing it to us for 20 years. It's wrong. We got to stop it.
Speaking of mental health, how can Maine improve the access of mental health?
Yeah, it's a good segue, wasn't it, David?
Yeah.
My mom, as you both know, my mom had some mental health challenges. They used to call it manic depression. Now it's called bipolar. And I was just a teenager. I didn't really understand what was going on. My mom was depressed, couldn't get out of bed. She would cry at night, and I tried to console her. So that put me on a pathway or a journey to really better understanding our mental health system. And mom's not with us anymore, but she and I became so close. But she actually was admitted to AMHI, when I was in junior high, and there was like a 30-day, they admitted him for 30 days. So we went from back in the 70s, AMHI, which I'm not saying was a great institutionalization, wasn't maybe the answer, but we went from that to outpatient care today. So we've got people with serious mental health issues. Robert Cartwright comes to mind. There's a lot of people that have serious mental health issues here in the state of Maine. They're out walking on the street.
Right.
Not
homeless
getting care.
too.
Exactly, Dave. It's all intertwined.
Or in jail.
Or in jail.
Where they shouldn't be.
It's all intertwined.
Yeah.
People try to self-medicate. And the thing that really, really brought my mom's quality of life back was she had a nervous breakdown later in life, and I became her legal medical guardian. And that's just, I want to be specific about that. It was just on the medical side. I wasn't trying to run mom's life, finance or anything else. But that enabled me to go with mom to her psychiatrist appointments, McGeechee Hall in Portland. So I could sit there with the psychiatrist and the doctor, and Mom would come up with I need this, I'm depressed, I need an antidepressant. And I'd be like, Mom, you're actually not doing too bad. It'd be kind of a lonely, quiet ride home, right? It's an interesting thing. But once people experience that high, like Mom had for several decades, it's almost like a drug. Right. They want that high, and they go to great lengths to get it. And without me being there to temper her desires, and the psychiatrist says, okay, according to Shawn, you're a good Ann. You're good where you're at. So I would really stress the use of, it's a kind of a blue paper is a lot to it, because you're taking away a person's rights. So this is a serious move, right? It's got to go through the court. The judge has to approve it. I'm taking away my mom's legal medical rights, really, for me to be involved. But that, to me, is the answer. Because if you take, everybody is going to listen to this, right? They know if they don't have a family member, they have a close friend. That person has a relapse or whatever, gets the medication they need, they get back on track. What happens? They start feeling better, they stop taking the medication, and they go right off.
They don't think they need it.
Exactly, David.
Yeah.
Which is, it's an inhibition. My mom was a beautiful lady. She was awesome. When she was on, she was on. But when she was off, she was a handful and a half. So there's so many people out there listening can understand what I'm stressing is there's an angel in every family. And we depend too much on our government to try to provide assistance to those that are impaired when a family member could do it more passionately and more consistently, but they don't have the tool. The tool is you've got to have the legal bearing. And in some cases, like my mom, not physically force her, but kind of, Mom, we got to go to P6. I'm taking it to P6. You're sick. You need help. Not fun, not a good conversation with your mother you love, but that's the tough love that you've got to exhibit when someone's in crisis. Mm-hmm. You're not going to get that by just calling 1-800.
Right. Yeah.
That person
on the hotline
is going to take their life, or they'll attempt to take their life, do serious damage in the community and to their own reputation, which is hard to rebuild. Yeah. So our mental health system needs an overhaul. It needs to be reconstructed, and it can be, but it's not going to happen with the current administration, which hasn't displayed or demonstrated any compassion or the realities of understanding the complexity of mental health. They don't seem to care. They don't talk about it. They do anything about it, and it's wrong.
Well, speaking of that, think about the children that are in foster care, and that is just detrimental to what is happening with the system. And we thought maybe with the new commissioner, things would change. Well,
I know this isn't necessarily all a political podcast, Corenna, but you're so right. We've had, I want to be clear on this, we've had about 7 years of complete Democrat control, ranging from the House, the Senate, the Blaine House, Attorney General, Secretary of State, Public Utilities Commission. An unimaginable amount of money has come in during COVID. Billions of dollars have come into the state in addition to the blown up budget. And every, what you would consider to be a Democrat, right, hallmark of taking care of people, every area, like you mentioned, Corenna, is going in the wrong direction. Our homeless population has increased. The child deaths have increased. Mental health is a crisis. So I don't know what the Democrats keep selling this, because I don't see a lot of heart and compassion in action. I see a lot of words. Well, talk is cheap. They don't not taking the action to improve these critical areas that we depend on the social service safety nets. We depend on them. I know, David, we pay our taxes. Where's the money go? They're wasting our money, and that's what aggravates us. That's why we get frustrated. So the Mills administration and the Democrat monopoly has done, I'm not going to say irreparable harm, because anything we can get squared around, but they've done a lot of harm, a lot of damage to the pride and the social fabric that they claim to care about. It's just statistically proven, whether it's education scores, the homelessness, the child deaths and safety. Bill Diamond's on him, he and his wife Jane. It's just, it couldn't be any more disappointed in the Democrats, and it's going to cost them. They're going to pay the price. They paid it in America for this last election, Americans, and I'm hoping Mainers are going to get back on board here and get back on track, because we cannot allow this monopoly to continue.
Well, speaking of that, will you be considering running for governor 2026?
Corenna, that's it. Thanks for, I loaded that, didn't I?
Yeah, but when you walked in today, how many people came up and asked you to run? I must have been at least 7 or 8 walking into our studio asking you to run. So obviously we have to ask the question.
Right. No, fair enough. No, I said to people, I've seen them in gas stations and, around the state, and they're always kind and curious. But I would say, and I had said right up to I said, listen, we got to focus on getting this country back on track. This gubernatorial election's way in the distance, but now it's getting closer. So I actually am. After November, I am thinking about it. I will say that.
That's great news.
Haven't made a decision, haven't have anything that's to add beyond that. But no, I got to think about it, because so many people supported us this last run, came up short, which is never easy. It's tough to lose. Christy and I went back to work. We had a life outside of politics, obviously. And we're looking at the current state of the state, and you just get fired up about it. It's like, how could individuals not see the direction the state was going to go when you get people running it that don't have the background of operating an enterprise. They've never grown an enterprise or had a successful enterprise. They've been in politics for decades.
Since you are considering running for governor, how soon before you make that decision? When should we anticipate that answer?
Obviously on our show.
Yeah. No, I mean, I want to be clear with the listeners here. I'm thinking about running for governor because a lot of people have asked, and I've looked at kind of the talk of you guys are very close to the action, but you've heard of some of the names thrown, and I'm just looking at the lineup, and it's kind of similar to, we ran in 18. There's going to be a lot of people from Augusta.
There will be.
Running, and I don't hear of any emerging successful business people that are going to run the state back into the black, and we had a $500 million shortfall. Who's got the financial acumen and experience to reorganize state government, right-size it to lower our cost? The 20th century was work less, make more. The 21st century is you better find out a way to do more with less.
Right.
That's in the private sector. And we experience it, right, David? So we know how to reduce costs. There's this attitude out there that people just generally think that you can't reduce cost and improve quality or service. They're not mutually exclusive. You can do both.
You can do both.
So it's not, you're going to cut. That's going to ruin this. Well, you had all the money anyone could ever ask for, all the control, and you found a way to ruin a lot of our social service programs, ruined them. We got a different approach. Yeah, I think it's going to take somebody that's going to go at this next election cycle, be respectful, represent Republican Party and represent the people of Maine the right way. But whoever gets in there is going to have a backbone and be on a mission to right the ship, because this $500 million shortfall is the tip of the iceberg. This is just getting started. And the Republicans, I give them a lot of credit. Trey Stewart, Billy Bob, those guys up there, actually it's the Senate, Jim Libby, they're going to bat against the Democrats and they're holding the line. As a matter of fact, I've made some phone calls to them to encourage them to do just that. The Democrats have hung them out to dry the last 3 budget cycles, didn't even care if they showed up. They did it. They passed what they passed. They've dug this hole, and the Republicans should not, even if it shuts the state, they should not budge. They should demand, and they have, the Democrats have a fix, a solution to the Medicaid expansion so that it's sustainable. Whether it's work requirements, like the LePage administration had, there's a lot of policy changes that they can embed in this budget that would change the cash flow and change the financial trajectory. And the Democrats are trying to trick them again, to get them agree. No, pass this because all the hospitals are going to shut down. Then we'll figure it out. No, they won't. Then they'll go with a majority budget again, right? We've seen this movie. And I don't, the media's not going to cover it that way. And the people aren't going to hear both sides of the story. But if they listen to your podcast, you guys, they're hearing it straight. This is a Democrat trickery. They're not taking accountability for the hole that they've dug and that we said they were going to dig. And don't budge. We've got to fix it. We got to fix it now.
Before we let you go, tell us where you're heading next.
Yep. We're headed over to SkillsUSA, which is a national career tech and ed vocational program where they take the best students. We have 27 CTE schools here in the state of Maine. They'll pick the best students in each trade, whether it's automotive, collision repair, carpentry, come to UTI right up here in the great city of Bangor, and they'll all compete to win, first place, second place, third place. Part of the obligation that Moody's feels, we have 2 or 3 of our coworkers will be up there judging.
Yes, along with ours. Yep.
Yeah, exactly, David. It's a commitment to the industry and to the feeder system that we have. We had some special shirts made up because our dear friend and late coworker Bob Filanowski passed back last fall. We missed Bob, and he was a judge at Skills every year. Sherry Lavoie made a nice T-shirt up in his honor, and we'll be wearing that proudly.
Oh, that's awesome.
Great.
Yeah, we've been fortunate to hire a couple of the people who've actually won the program over there at our dealerships. It's a great, and I'm glad you could come up to go to that.
Yeah, well, it's good to come up and see you guys.
Well, yes,
Thank you.
Likewise. Thank you again so much. It's always good to see you.
You're welcome. You as well. Corenna, David, thanks.
Different views. Different views.
I know your story.
From different
Choose.
Incredible job.
He's David Quirk.
You brought it up.
And she's Corenna Quirk.
Imagine.
This is
2 Point.